slideshow is going to explain how you identify primary and secondary sources and how to select an exhibit topic. Your exhibit topic is going to be the subject you will spend the rest of this class working on. You'll also have some other exercises to do on different subjects that you'll read about in the modules. But this project that you select, the topic you select now in week 2, is going to be the subject of your final project that you submit in week 7. That's worth almost a third of your grade. So it's really important that you select a topic you're interested in. And if you don't know whether you're interested in one of the topics, but you think you might be, then read the research starter. And the topic you finally select, read the research starter, because you want to know exactly what you're supposed to be focusing on. Some of these topics can be very large, but you need to narrow down the research you're going to do so you don't bite off more than you can chew in the next 7 weeks, okay? So let's get started. So project 2-2 is your topic proposal for your exhibit that you will present in Module 7. And this is where you're going to select your topic. This is a very important week, and you need to give some thought to the topic you choose because you can't change it once you've selected your topic. So there's a link in the guidelines, the 2-2 guidelines, to the project resources, and this is what it looks like over here on the right-hand side. You can see that there's bold headings: African American rights, indigenous rights, LGBTQ rights, women's rights, and then on down through the bottom. And then underneath each of the headings is a topic. Those are the things that you choose from to select the subject you want to research. Now, when you select one, or if you want to find out more about one to decide whether you want to select it, you click on the Research Starter. That's going to take you to an encyclopedia entry that gives you details explaining what that topic actually is. So, for instance, if you want to do the Haitian independence or Haitian rebellion, you need to read the Research Starter so you understand the specific years of that very long rebellion that you're going to investigate. You don't want to do all of those years, it's too much. So the Research Starter gives you an idea of exactly what you're going to be looking at. It's very important that you read that so you're oriented to the right historical time period, the right topic within that subject, so you know what you're supposed to do and you stay on track for your research. This is your main project through the class, okay? Identify primary sources and secondary sources, and I'll talk about them a little bit later. Right now we're looking at primary. Primary sources come first. That means that they are the original documents or artifacts or items that were created or that were used during the historical event that you're studying, all right? I've got a list here of some of the things that you could hunt for. Documents, a letter, a diary, a journal, a newspaper article, a poster, a flyer. Those are all, if they're created at the time of your historical event, at that time, then they're primary. A photograph, legal records, like a birth certificate or a death certificate or a land deed. An article of clothing that someone wore during this historical event. A newspaper article, a book that was published at that time, not later, not afterwards, unless it's by an eyewitness, or business records. Those are just some of the things that you can look for as primary sources for your historical event. They have to have been created or used in your event, not afterwards. For instance, if you're doing the Constitutional Convention, say you're looking into that for primary sources, that convention took place in 1787. So if you find a letter from Thomas Jefferson to Alexander Hamilton, dated 1795, that cannot be a primary document for the Constitutional Convention. Because number one, Thomas Jefferson wasn't there, and it's several years after the convention ended. So it's not a primary document for that historical event. Now, the exception, as I mentioned, is that if an eyewitness writes an account of the event later, then the date can be after the primary event because he's looking back and telling his story. That's still a primary source because he's telling the story as he saw it at the time. For example, there's 3 primary documents here on this slide, and if you were doing a research or preparing an exhibit on the Constitutional Convention, 1787, which took place in Philadelphia, you might look for artifacts from that meeting that lasted several weeks, actually months. And so these are some of the things you might find. There's a letter from Alexander Hamilton to George Washington talking about the Constitution. There's a picture of the chest that Washington, he was the president of the convention, not the president of the United States. He just oversaw the workings of the convention, and he kept his important papers in this box at his desk. Then there's also a rough draft of the preamble to the Constitution. You can see that it's been marked through and new words added, and the whole Constitution was done this way. It's all marked up and scribbled over and new words written in. It's very interesting to look at that rough draft. So these are all primary sources because they originated at the time of the Constitutional Convention, which was 1777, 1778. 1787 and 1788. Sorry. If we had a letter from George Washington to Alexander Hamilton that was dated 1792, that would not be a primary document for this convention because it's after the fact. Okay. One place that you can look for primary sources that are excellent repositories are the databases in Shapiro Library for History. This is the link, or you can go to Shapiro Library Primary Sources Databases and find history in the alphabetical list and click on it. Then in that long list, these are the best ones for what you're doing. The New York Times Historical Archives. If you're doing something that happened in the United States from about, I think they started in 1846, that's a great resource there. You can find primary sources about your topic, okay, in that database. The primary sources collection, this is a list by a librarian named Adam Matthew, who compiled this list of primary sources. You can search through, find something there. Project Gutenberg is an outside source that's got primary sources such as books and letters that were written in historical eras. So let's say, for instance, you're researching 12 Years a Slave. You want to do an exhibit on slavery, and 12 Years a Slave by Solomon Northrop is one of your primary sources. He was a slave, free man from New York that was enslaved by kidnappers. And when he achieved his freedom again, about 13 years later, he wrote a book about that experience. And it's the original copy of that printing is in Project Gutenberg. That's a primary source if you were doing slavery. Then the U.S. History in Context is a database provided by Gale, which is a publishing university, or not a university, but an academic publishing company, and they would have lots of different documents there. So that's one place that you can look. You can also look on the internet, which I'm going to talk about on the next slide. So some other places to find primary sources are websites. Now, this can be a little tricky, but primary sources are okay to find on the internet because they're, if you have trouble in using the databases, which can be complicated, I know, in Shapiro Library, unless you're using for newspaper stories like the New York Times. Those are great primary sources. Otherwise, you may want to find artifacts like a diary or a picture, which can come from a news source, or it might come from something else, might be in the Library of Congress. An object that's connected with your topic. These kind of things are best found on the internet, but make sure that you find them in a page that's reputable. If you can, isolate the item or the object so it has its own web address so that I can click on that link and go right to it and see the item you're talking about. I don't want to go to a website where it's got, page after page of narration about the object. I just want the object. That's all you're looking for, is the item itself. If you're unsure, then send me an email with the link in there, and I'll let you know whether it's suitable or not. This is probably going to be some of the most fun you'll have in this class, is finding primary sources, because it's amazing the history, the primary source history, the original documents, the original items that are available to the general public, in addition to academic uses in like university and colleges. So this can be a lot of fun. Make sure that you put the link in your the template for week 2 when you're listing your sources. Make sure you follow those descriptions in the template and provide all that information, so I can just click and look and see what you've got. I check every source. I check every primary source. I check every secondary source. If I have to spend a lot of time hunting, thinking, well, I can't really find it from this description and they didn't give me the link, then that's going to knock points off of your submission. So please do the best work that you can. Consider that this is all going to be graded and double checked, and you'll do just fine. I hope you enjoy searching for these primary sources, because it can be a lot of fun stepping into the past. This last slide, I want to talk a little bit about secondary sources. Even though you're not looking for secondary sources this week, you will be soon. I believe it starts next week. In week 3, you'll be finding secondary sources. It's very tempting to just search the internet and find a website that's got information on the topic you're going to create your exhibit about, but that's not suitable for this class. Secondary sources for historical research, they provide analysis and interpretation done by experts, by scholars, about the historical event that you're building your exhibit on. So it's very important that you get the full, in-depth history of that topic for your exhibit. You don't want to just hit the high points or just throw out some kind of, junior high level information. You want to explain to the public about your story and why it's important in history. So that's why you need to be able to find appropriate secondary sources. So a secondary source in academic research, you must be able to identify who the author is, and that gives you the ability to also find out what their credentials are, what their experience and expertise is, who the publisher is, and the date of the publication. Those 3 things are part of the identity of an academic secondary source. If the source has got just great information about your topic and you think, oh, this is just exactly how I would write it if I was writing it, but there's no author, you can't use it. It's not a secondary source. You have to be able to identify who wrote it, unless occasionally you find something in a newspaper story or you find a newspaper article that's a secondary source, meaning it's made after your historical event. Oftentimes it doesn't have a byline or the author's name. That's okay, as long as it's a reputable newspaper or news source, like the New York Times, Washington Post, LA Times. I mean, there's lots and lots of them. CNN is okay too, some of those types of websites, but you got to make sure it's a reputable news source. It can't just be, Joe Blow's blog. No, doesn't work. The internet sites that you find that have great information that you think is exactly what you need are usually general interest websites. So they're for casual searches, people doing everyday casual searches, not for a grade in college, okay? You don't want those websites, Smithsonian.com, History.com, encyclopedias, U.S. State Department, NASA.com. Those are not academic websites. They're general interest, telling the public about that organization or that activity in that organization. Usually doesn't have an author's name. That's your key right there. The best place to find secondary sources is in Shapiro Library. We've got an extensive library for research that's made for academics. So we have links to multiple databases and other sources. It's not all contained in our library. We link with other partners to provide you with lots and lots of great resources here. So what you want to look for is a book in the Shapiro Library on your topic and do lots and lots of different searches. Use your topic, use people's names that are instrumental in your historical event. Play around with your search terms to look for books by scholars or experts or articles in academic journals. How can you tell if it's an academic journal? It's published by a university or a very reputable scholarly source, like an association of some kind. So these are things you need to keep in mind as you're looking for secondary sources. If you are unsure about any source, just zip it to me in an email and I'll tell you whether you can use it or not. You don't have to struggle or wonder or worry I don't think I'm doing this right. No, don't do it. Ask me. Just ask me. I'm here to help. Okay?